All right, well, welcome to T21Con and the first presentation of the day, O Sheet. Jory and I are really happy that you're here today and just have a few reminders to use the chat feature and set that to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your feedback, your thoughts, your ideas. And then if you have any questions for Jory or myself as the presentation is going on, please put those in the Q&A. We hope to have some Q&A time at the end. But if we don't, we can always get back to you with the answers to those questions. We'll have our contact information in the slideshow as well. And as we're coming in, if you could in the chat, just tell us what grade level you're teaching so we can learn more about this virtual audience. This is our first time doing T21Con virtually, our third time presenting. So we're happy to be back.
Yep.
Very cool. Wow, thank you everybody for putting in what grade levels you're teaching or hoping to teach. It's awesome to have so many pre-service teachers here with us today. I know that Jory and I both attended ISU and both did all of our stuff around ISU. So sometimes we wish we were back.
Yeah, we're not there this weekend.
Yes. Good. If you're just joining us, go ahead and enter in the chat area what grade level you teach or you would dream to teach so we can learn more about our virtual audience here today. Oh my, I see somebody transitioning from preschool to high school. Woo! Yeah. My switch to middle school to third grade seemed a big jump. Very cool. Well, thank you guys so much. Continue to use the chat feature and the question and answer feature. Jory and I are presenting 2 sessions today, so I'm going to kind of take the lead in this one, and Jory's going to take the lead in our next one. But let's get started. Oh, Sheets. I just love Google Sheets. And one of my coworkers, as I was presenting Google Sheets for the first time in our district, was she just came up with this headline or this tagline for me of excitement and that Google Sheets can do so much for us in our classrooms. My name is Pam Starostka, and I currently teach 3rd grade with Jory at Brook Park Elementary School in LaGrange Park. I attended ISU and have my master's degree in curriculum and instruction. I have my national board certification in technology and career education and have taught 5th grade and middle school technology. So I feel like sharing Google Sheets is kind of right up my alley. Jory?
Yep. I am Jory Jones, also Illinois State graduate, like Pam said. And I also have my master's in curriculum and instruction from National Louis University. This is my 15th year teaching. I've taught 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And I love 3rd grade. I love the age group, and I love being on Pam's team. She is an expert in all things Google, so she is the perfect person to learn from today.
Well, thank you, Jory. We have a team of 6 teachers, which I know is rare in an elementary school setting. But the 6 of us, although we've been in and out and have different teammates, the 6 of us work so collaboratively, and it's so awesome that Jory and I have been together for 5 years now on the same team. And if I ever change teams, she's got to come with me.
Same.
All right. So I'm always so surprised that more teachers do not use Google Sheets. To me, it's my absolute favorite Google tool, and it saves me time. And I feel like when I'm saving myself time, I have more time to give to my students or more energy to spend with my students as well. So today, I hope that I can share my love of Google Sheets with you. Our learning outcomes today are to implement technology as a learning and grading tool in your classrooms, to use technology to simplify creating class lists, letters, and certificates for the classroom, to organize and sort student data, and of course, to add some resources to your digital toolbox. Today, we will begin discussing data entry and organization of data. And then we'll move on to using that data to create form letters, certificates. We'll talk about possible assignments in Google Sheets, and then end with some formulas that will make Google Sheets do your work for you. So you can get a copy of today's presentation by scanning this QR code, or we will also put a link to it in the chat. Awesome, thanks, Jory. And as you're doing that, you may want to make a copy of this sheet, because if you're like me, you like to practice along with a presentation and be able to have that visual hands-on learning. Oh, Jory, can you send that to attendees, the link?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We're all learning this. Right now, school is hybrid, so Jory is teaching 2 different half-day in-person classes, and I have, I guess, the honor or privilege to be teaching an in-person class and a remote class in the afternoon. We're all getting experience in all different ways this year.
Yes.
All right. So I hope that everybody can now see that link and go ahead and click along with it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right, so if you learn by doing, go ahead and you can split your screen so that you see Zoom on one side and then your example sheet on the other. Will be going back and forth to be able to do that. And having that little hands-on experience, I know, is very good for me in a presentation, and to be able to do it later on. All right, so we're going to start with formatting data and exploring just the data entry part of Google Sheets. So if you could take a moment right now, and I'll put this link into the chat as well. Oops. If you can enter in some data for us about your comfort, your knowledge of Google Sheets. Oh, I see a bunch of you in there. Awesome. So if you can fill out that form. Oh, I love so many greens. That means a lot of you are already using Google Sheets in your classroom. Please, as we're going along, go ahead and enter in or comment any ways that you're using Google Sheets in your classroom. And if you can't find the form, if you just want to put in the chat what you use Google Sheets for already. As our keynote said, we have to be our professional and personal learning networks and collaborate with one another. So any ideas that you also have, that is awesome. In any ways I can bring back to teachers at our school how we're continuing to use Sheets, I know they'll be excited.
I'm seeing that they're not getting the form, so I'm going to send it again.
Okay.
I have panelists and attendees.
Awesome. Yeah, Google Sheets could be awesome in science classes. Oh no, the QR codes are not working. Oh, you test things and you test things. We'll get those fixed. Oh, good. I'm glad they worked for some people. I'm sorry that it didn't work for everyone. Oh. All right. Well, as you're completing that Google form, you can get your data from Google Forms straight away into Google Sheets. And something that I just started using this year was I always created a new spreadsheet each time I had a Google form. And it wasn't until this year that I even read or noticed that you can select an existing sheet. So when you select an existing spreadsheet, it will ask you which one do you want to insert that data into, and it'll make a new tab at the bottom. And so for my data that I'm collecting, I have an AM class and a PM class. I can merge that data into one spreadsheet, one workbook that I'm looking at. So I don't have to keep on clicking into, here's my AM class, here's my PM class. It's all in one spreadsheet for me, which I find really, really helpful and saving me just a little bit of time. But when you're opening something multiple times during the day, you're going to want it to all be together. So some ways that we use forms to collect data. At the beginning of the year, we send out just a Google form asking what is your contact information, what information should we know about your child, just getting general permissions from parents. This year, one of our teachers even took it a step further. She's a full-time remote teacher and asked, like, what have you set up a learning environment for your child, you know, and asked for different things that she could provide for the remote students that would be full remote. The other way that I use forms to collect data is a parent contact log. So each time I reach out to a family, I enter in who I talked to, and oh, I didn't keep that up. I pull up who I talked to, why I talked to them, and kind of notes that go along with that. So I'm going to view it, how I would do it. So as I'm emailing a parent, as I am calling a parent, I'm going to select the student's name. I'm going to put in that I talked to mom, and I already have it set up that I could put in a date if it was different than the time that I was doing it right now. And let's say I was composing an email, and then just a positive parent contact, and then I could add some notes in. When I hit submit, of course, I can always submit more. When I hit submit, it'll all go into my responses. And like I was saying before, we can just open that in Google Sheets. And I have the form set up so that all of my student data is coming into this first tab. And then the second tab down below is labeled Student 1. And using a formula that we'll talk about later on, I'm able to separate the information from this all data tab to any time that I've talked to student one's parents will be all on this sheet. And anytime that I talk to student two's family, it would all be on this sheet. This has been really helpful at different parent-teacher conferences or times when, you know, you might have a parent that's like, well, you never told me. And so I've only had to use it 1 or 2 times, but in those 1 or 2 times, I felt very organized, prepared, and ready to talk to that parent. Oh, I will change the permissions for that. I thought all the permissions in that folder. Jory, can you check on that? The permissions.
Yeah, I was doing that.
Okay, awesome.
I'm checking.
The other thing, because I do have remote students and we really want to be able to check in on students and their zones. We talked about being in the green zone in school all the time and the yellow zone and the red zone. So my daily check-in student forms just tell me how they're doing in the morning. With COVID and everything going on, we may not be able to have that human touch, that hug in the morning, that high five, but my students know that by filling out this form, they can tell me something that they're like worried about that day, something that they're uneasy, and then we can talk about it. My afternoon form, our students are doing half of their day remotely. So the afternoon form just has them check in, how did your remote work go? We're not there with them. So I felt like we needed a way to share what needs we had. So in that PM form, it does that. Are there any ways that you use forms in your classroom that allows you to collect data that you would like to share? Go ahead and type in the chat.
I do see that the folder is for anyone with the link. So I'm just going to send the link again for the form and see if that works.
Yeah. Or we might have to go into the individual files maybe. Maybe it's not doing.
I did go just to the form.
Okay. Oh yeah, self-monitoring, that's a really big, I like that. Ooh, okay, yeah, attendance. Yeah, learning checks, exit slips, all of that stuff. Oh, very good. Right. We will try to fix all of those permissions. Oh, good. The next way, so you can use a Google form to put data into a spreadsheet, but you can also enter your own data. So I really love seeing all of my student data in one place, all of their student growth. So I teach 3rd grade, so I bring in their data from 2nd grade, and then I'm able to see when we're map testing, when we're doing BAS, when we're doing all kinds of different just assessments on the kids, running records. I'm able to put everything in this one spreadsheet and then see if it needs any attention, any student needs extra attention in a certain area. So in my student data, and hopefully that link is working for everyone, but my student data here, I've hidden my student names, but we just took our fall reading map assessment for my in-person students. And I'm able to type in, I'm able to bring my laptop around and just when they are finished, type in the score. And I've used conditional formatting here that we'll talk about to say, okay, these students are right on track, like they're in the green. The yellow is like, ooh, we need a little work. And then the red, hopefully they're either receiving another intervention or I need to reach out to one of our interventionists to get some more help for that student. The other ways that we enter data is maybe a work check-in. Instead of walking around with my clipboard and checking things in, I can use check boxes in Google Sheets. We also do words their way. So as an entire grade level, we assess our students for words their way. We enter in their information. We have different drop-down menus so that it'll sort the students into their groups. And then Google Sheets is doing that work for us. So we just do a little bit of a data entry, and then they are able to be into those groups, and everybody knows where their students are going. Multiplication data. At one of the T21Con conferences, we were inspired by a teacher that said they use Google Forms in order to test multiplication facts. And so when they were testing those multiplication facts, this multiplication data sheet allows me to do check boxes of, does my student have mastery of the zeros, the ones, and just have one place where all of my information is stored. And then maybe, I might say my team's or my favorite use of Google Sheets is just our lesson plans. And we can enter in hyperlinks so that everything is right there in one click. And then I'll have blank ones that I can just duplicate and move on to the next week, and already have like the backbones, the skeleton of what I do every day, and then just duplicate it. So that's one of my favorite things as well, is just duplicating that sheet and then being able to go back all in one workbook. So Google Sheets is set up in cells. There's different columns and rows, and then the tabs at the bottom. So when you click on the tab, it'll just move you to a different section of that spreadsheet or in that workbook. The Google Toolbar is pretty much the same across the board, but in Google Sheets there are some areas that are a little bit different. The one that I really want to point out right now, ooh, that's a really good idea, to put the drop down in a lesson plan to keep track of how much whole class group or independent work you assign. Love that. The 100% is the viewing size. It's not the printing size. So if you have a pretty small monitor and you want it to be a little bit bigger, you can change that viewing size and it would not affect how it would be printed if you're going to be printing. The next section in Google Sheets toolbar are the currency, or how your number is going to be formed if it is a number in fact. So you can format it to always be a percent. You can format it to have one place value after the decimal point. You can have two place values after the decimal point, or as many as you want to program. In Google Sheets, you can use those fonts that you've used in Google Slides and Google Docs, and you can change the font size to make your spreadsheets a little bit more friendly. And then the next portion of the toolbar is that you can fill individual cells. You can add borders. The borders that you see automatically can be turned on or off when you are printing. But if you add a border, it would stay a border. Merging cells. So if you're creating a header or a heading for your spreadsheet, you may want to merge the cells. The cells, just like in Docs, can be aligned left, right, center, or the next one is either if you want your text at the top, always in the middle, or at the bottom. Text wrapping, I always find, is a feature that not everybody knows about, because in Google Docs, we're just so used to everything going to the next line. In Google Sheets, as you're typing, everything will go from left to right, unless you do that wrapping. Then it will fill and make the cell a little bit larger. Text rotation is really good when you're doing a check-in list, or where you want to have text being more vertical instead of just a horizontal text. The next portion of the toolbar is very specific to Google Sheets. Inserting a hyperlink, adding a comment. So if I wanted to add a comment or had a question in our team shared lesson plans, I might be able to put in, hey Jory, could you help me out with this lesson? Or adding in a comment of somebody else planning something and saying like, oh my goodness, Jory, this lesson was fantastic. Like, we need to remember this for next year. Those comments would be really helpful that way. Inserting a chart, filters, and then adding in different formulas. So when you're entering data, On your keyboard, the tab will move you anywhere from left to right. Enter or return will move you down. The arrow keys move you anywhere, and if you click on any cell, you go directly to it. Something that saved me as a very new Google Sheets user was the use of Control Command Return to hit enter in a cell, because I wanted text to be on the next line, but I didn't want to enter it in a new cell. So Control Command and Enter or Control Alt and Enter were really helpful for moving within that cell to a new line. Something that I don't know if I was just new learning this a couple years ago, but when you do Shift Command and V to paste, it will paste everything as the same format of where you're copying it from. And that works across the Google platforms. Wrapping the text, like we talked about, that's the arrow there that will automatically have your cell go to the next line and not go through the next cell. Inserting an image. Sometimes pictures just tell the story so much better. So when you click Insert and Image, you're able to either do an image in the cell or an image over the cell. And you can find images while you're there. You can pull something up from your drive. You can use your camera. You can also just do a search. So, you know, the times that you want your lesson plans to look a little bit cuter or sophisticated, and then if you put the image over, you will be able to move it anywhere in that document. So on our example sheet, I have put in some images there as instructions, or just like a little how-to. And then I have to go back there to insert a link. So the first tab in the example sheet that I'm hoping we don't have permission problems in is to add in a link. And I mean, as Jory had told you, I just have a huge passion for the Google products, but and have been using them for a long time. But I love that you can just add in a hyperlink and go straight to that website. I love that since all of our school resources are in Google, that I can just put that link and it will bring me to that folder. And I don't have to navigate through my third grade folder, my reading folder. Everything is there with one click. So you can add in like any text, and then if you go to the next line, you could say like resource. And then if you highlight just one word and then do either Command K, you will be able to type in the website there that you want to go to, or if there's another sheet within your document that you just want to link to. So maybe you're making a table of contents just to say like the week of, I'm just thinking like on the spot, our lesson plans, we might do a table of contents so that it's nice and easy to go to. And then I would just hit apply, and only that word becomes the link. And that's something that I have noticed just this summer of being able to put multiple links in one cell. That was pretty cool. And just, you know, a little bit of time saving, but still time saving. You can also hide information. So like I did in my student data, if I click on column B, I'm able to hide that column. So maybe there's some information that I don't want students to see. Maybe there's some information that I just want to hide right now. You can do that. And then you can press on the arrows to unhide that as well. You can notice if you drag, because this is what just happened to me, I can move, if I click and hold with that hand, I can move that column around as well. And you can also, instead of just right-clicking or double tapping on your trackpad, you can go to view, and you can see your hidden sheets. To resize your columns, you would click in between the letters and you can resize them. You can make them larger, smaller. You can also do that with the rows, so you can make your row bigger or smaller. If you want to select more than one, I would click on my first and then hit shift and click on the last one that I want to do, and that would allow me to change all of those at the same time to be the same width or height. If you want to use a specific number, you can right click or double tap and go to resize column, and you can see the number that's there or fit it to the data. And I use that number a lot of times if I want like alternating column widths. Now the next thing that we're going to go over is splitting text. So sometimes our office typically sends us student data with everybody's name in one column. And sometimes I just want to use first names for things. Sometimes I want to sort by last names for things. So what you're going to do there is you're going to select the cell or just the cells that you want to do. And then you're going to go to data, and then it's split text to columns. When you split that text to columns, a pop-up appears about the separator. You can either detect it automatically. You can say if there's a comma splitting them, or in this case, I'm going to select space. And so when I select space, it now separates Mickey Mouse into two separate columns, and I would be able to move those around if I wanted last name first. And you'll notice that it didn't do anything with Goofy because it didn't have a last name for Goofy. And then we can just undo to put them back together. Or the next tab at the bottom is about joining text. So when you're joining text, maybe you've gotten information from your school office or a Google form that has student first name, student last name, and you really want this information to come together in just a name field. What you're going to do there is you're going to enter in a formula. So we're just going to hit the equal sign. We're going to click on the first cell that we want. So let's pretend that we want the student's last name first. I'm going to hit the and then I am going to put quotation mark and space quotation mark. So the and says I want this cell and this cell. The quotation marks tell me I want this text in the center, or in this case, I want a space in the center. The quotation marks are just like when we use quotation marks in like teaching reading or citing evidence. This is the exact thing that I want in there. And then I'm going to click on cell 8. Click there, and then, oh, I didn't do the next and symbol. It won't let you move on if you don't have the correct things. And then when I hit enter, I now have McDuck Scrooge. Now let's say I really want that comma in the center. So in my quotation marks where my exact text is, I'm going to put that comma, keep the space, and hit enter or return, and now I have the comma right in there. I found myself retyping things way too many times, and this little formula really helps me. Now I do not need to do that formula for every single cell. What I do is there's a little box down on the bottom right of the cell. I click on it and I drag down. I can drag that down so that that formula goes for as long as I want, and maybe I'm going to put in just my own name here. And as I type it in, that goes to automatically put my last name, student first name. Oh, yes, yes. I love that formula because it does save me time. And I set up a lot of my student lists one time, and then I use it over multiple years. So I just delete those student names, or I make a copy of the file, and I am able to, like, it took me a little bit to set up the formula the first time, but now I've been able to use it for 10 years and saved myself even just a little bit of the time at the beginning of the year is super, super helpful. The beginning of the year is, you know, a tough time for all of us, no matter how many years you have in.
I put the formula in that too.
Oh.
So in case you're moving on, the formula is in the chat.
Yes, I'm sorry. And hopefully it's on in that spreadsheet as well as an image. Yes, I do apologize. One, my students tell me I talk fast normally. Two, when I practiced this, I have timed at over 60 minutes and I do not want to take up too much of your time and share this information. And I know that we all have other presentations to go to. So I'm going to apologize for that in advance. Freezing cells is another thing, or freezing rows and columns are another thing that allow me to always see my student name. So when I am looking in my student data, for example, anytime that I'm going across, I'm going to be able to see my student name or number. In our example sheet here, we're going to practice freezing the column. So if I want just the numbers to show, I'm going to select the A up at the top and go to View and Freeze. When I'm at freeze, I can say up to the current column. So anytime that you want to go up to even more columns other than 1 or 2, I would just select up to the current column. And that's going to allow me to move left or right and always have those numbers appearing. I can also say that I want to freeze it all the way up to B. So View and Freeze and up to column B. So I'm only showing the number and the name, or I can say that I don't want any frozen. I often, not always, but I like to freeze the top header. So to do that, you would go to View and Freeze and up to current row. And then that way, no matter how far I get down in my data, I'm always going to see what the heading is or what that information is pertaining to. That is freezing. All right. On the next tab at the bottom, there are so many times that we need to alphabetize things or put things in order of some sort. So Google Sheets can do that for you. When you have the information, and as you're alphabetizing or as you're sorting by certain things, I highly recommend that you always click in this top left box. When you click there, it's going to select everything. The last thing that you want to do in Google Sheets is sort something and now like row B does not go with the what row A was supposed to go in. Just go from my experiences of data has been separated and not stuck together. So I highly recommend that you just click in that top box and it'll select everything, and then no data will get separated from its original destination. Then you would go to data, and you could start with one of these top 4, but I like to have a little bit more control with it. So I click on sort range, and then if your data has a header row, it will not sort that header row if you select that. And then I'm going to sort by column A to Z, obviously, is going to be your A is at the top, your Z is at the bottom, but it also goes with numbers. So if you're sorting by numbers, 1 would be at the top or 0 would be at the top, and then lower numbers down. So if you're using Google Sheets as a gradebook, you would be able to see how many students had a certain percentage or how many students had a certain number. You can add another sort column. We don't have data there, so I'm not going to do that. But now when I click sort, it's going to put art at the top, and it's now alphabetized my data. I've used that to sort just information together. For our words their way example, I've sorted by what level they're in. So if they're at a beginning spelling inventory level or a much higher level, you can use that sort feature for all kinds of things. But when you're sorting by multiple columns, you really want to click in that area and select everything. Yeah, now this is, I know this was in the chat, and drop downs have, if you know you're going to have the same information in an area, create a drop down for it. It's going to save you maybe seconds, but over time, a lot. I just think it's a really amazing tool. So you're going to go to data and data validation. And when you're in there, you can either select the range that's in a spreadsheet, or if you just want to type in a list of items, which I usually prefer to do, is just go to list of items. And then I could type in, we use this a lot for like science, social studies, and STEAM all are in one class period for us, one 30-minute period. So then if I hit save, I've now created a drop down where I can click on this area and say, okay, well, we're teaching social studies this week. It would be nice to see the whole word. Or, okay, guess what? The STEAM teacher is teaching that lesson this week and we don't need to plan anything. Once you have that data validation, if you hit backspace, or just the text will go away. And something, if you don't like using your mouse and clicking down on the arrow, you can start typing in like science and then use your arrow keys and enter to have that data put in there as well. So it's going to predict the things that you have in that drop down. If you want to delete that entirely, you would right click or two-finger tap, and you could either delete the cells or you could remove the data validation. I usually delete the cell and then just shift it left. So you have kind of that drop down. But that's been really helpful as well. Now, I learned this, I have to give this credit to our math interventionist at our school and math coach. I saw these little triangles in the side of her cell and I was like, oh, what does that mean? What is that? And she was like, well, when you hover over it, it'll show you the note. So as you have a spreadsheet and you're entering in data, so my student data, one of my kids, good for him, read his entire test out loud to himself. Like, I want to remember that for a conference. I want to say he was working so hard and he read the entire test out loud to himself. Now, that's also not very typical in third grade, so I also want to remember that to say he's using strategies that his reading improvement teacher said. So you don't have to have anything typed in, but you could type in a word. And then to do that, you either right click to insert a note, and then a little box pops up, and you would say, like, pink is my favorite color. And then when you click off of it, that isn't shown, but you know that you have a note, and you hover over it and or bring your cursor over it and it's right there. You can also go to insert and to note. Those notes they're able to be printed out, but they don't print out like attached to that cell. It'll be like a second page, or it'll allow you to either print notes or not print notes. So let's see if it'll let me print. Yeah, so right here in formatting, it's showing my notes down here. You can see, I know it's probably small. If I uncheck that, it's not going to print my notes. So there's many times that in my lesson plans, I add in a note like, remember you have a sub at this time. I want that note, but I don't need anybody else to necessarily read that note or any of that information. You can also keep the cell there and just remove the note, or if you right click, you can clear the notes if you don't want the notes anymore. But I do also use notes a lot for running records. I'll enter in just their level because that's the information that's really important to me. But I also want to know, like, what did we read? And I'm noticing I'm running like way short in time. So let's go. The digital check boxes, to add check boxes, you just go to insert and a checkbox. Right here is where I've aligned text to be this rotate up. And I've used checkboxes for those multiplication. I don't know if everybody knows this one, but it's a little well-kept secret or not secret. If you copy information from a Google Sheet, you can paste it into Google Slides. And when you paste it in, it'll say, do you want to link this to the spreadsheet? If you select link to spreadsheet, any changes that happen in the spreadsheet, once you go back to the slide, you can click that button update and it'll automatically update it. You do not need to retype anything. And it would also work for any chart created from there. Conditional formatting. Jory, I think you are the one that taught me conditional formatting.
Yes, I love it. So helpful.
Conditional formatting, I mean, I love spreadsheets, but when information can just pop up at me and say, like, you've got it, you're in the mastery level, or, oh, we really need to work on that. So what you would do is you can just select that column, and then you would go to format, conditional formatting, and it says like what range I'm applying it to. And there's a whole bunch of different rules that you can apply, but it can be text is exactly, or text ends with, or starts with. So I'm just going to do starts with B, and then change my fill color to be this blue. You can also change the text color so that you can actually read it. And then instead of clicking out and saying done, big secret, add another rule. And this time, if my text starts with G, I'm just going to change it to green and add another rule. And I would keep on going. Oh, we have so many other things to cover. And then when you hit done, all of your rules would be here. Now, this is a cool way that if you don't have another resource to use that automatically grades things or automatically grades short answers, if you want students to type in an answer and have certain words or certain vocabulary words in their answer, you could say that the text contains the word and have it turn a certain color if it has a certain word. All right, Autocrat. All right, so any information that you have from a form or already in a spreadsheet, you can download Autocrat as an add-on and merge it in with a document. So you would have to go to add-ons and get the add-on of Autocrat. But you create a form letter or a Google slide, and you put in what information you want on every single student's thing, and then you add in information that has these two triangle brackets and then your heading. So you would copy that heading exactly from your Google spreadsheet. So in this case, my birthday in my Google spreadsheet, it's called birth space date and a colon here. And it's going to transfer all of that information for that student that it's associated with. In Autocrat, you would just go to add-ons and Autocrat and launch. I do have an example. So in our next tab for Autocrat 1, we have a little example for Roger Rabbit here. It's his birthday, and I want to create a birthday certificate for him. So once you launch Autocrat, and it does take thinking. Oh, yes, yes, Jody, yes, you can take data from a sheet and use it to create a form. I haven't done that personally yet, but I've heard it's very, very awesome. Very cool. So then we can create a new job. And it's really, you give it a name, you find your template, and go through to map the data that you want. So in this case, I select that I want the Autocrat 1, and then it's pulling up first name right away because I typed that in correctly, but it's not coming up with date. But that's because I didn't put the right information between the brackets, and it was really birthday on my sheet. If you don't have it, you can use that drop down to put it in. I'm going to cancel this one and just hit, once you create it, you can hit play. And if you have a lot of data in your spreadsheet, it will take a little bit of time because it's going row by row by row. But with this Autocrat, you are going to get a link right here that has your document. So now I could create these at the beginning of the year or as soon as I get my class list and be able to have a birthday certificate for each person in my classroom and have merged it together in just a couple seconds. I do want to give a shout out to the Howiewood kindergarten, because as I was searching for a cool birthday background, hers was very cute and ready to go. So that is one example of how I use Autocrat. And there is a video here that would take you through the steps. You know, I went really fast through that one. Another way that I do this is with student data. Oh, I do see Kelly. So the video is there as well. So I really hope that you can use Google Sheets, Google Forms to help save you time in your classroom. And there's extra formulas at the end of the slideshow. If you have any questions at all, and some different assignments that we've done in math class, if you have any questions, Jory and I are here for you. Our emails are at the end of the slideshow. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and being an amazing virtual audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam and Jory. Excellent. You had a lot of great information for us. So as we close it out, I just wanted to give a few updates. Remember that we have sessions starting on the hour, so you'll have a brief time if you need to check the website. There are 2 sessions offered each hour to choose from now, so you'll want to take a look and make your choice. In case you weren't here earlier to hear the announcement, you can fill out a form on our website for PD credit as well. If you're a practicing teacher and want to get credit for attending all of the sessions. And remember that we also have a T21Con at Illinois State or illstu.edu email if you have any questions or comments or anything you need help with during the conference as well. So thanks so much. And I see that the website is in the chat as well to check out the schedules. So we'll see you in another session in just about 10 minutes. Have a great one. Thank you, ladies.